so we got this 95 Blazer here.
No way. We got you.
Which happens to fall in between 1988 and 1998, which we make a Super Duty axle swap kit for. So we're going to be cutting this thing apart, throwing an 05 and up in the front. I believe we're throwing an axle in the rear too, I hope so. And going to start ripping on this thing. Going to be a little different once she rolls out of the shop.
Maybe. It'll be fine.
Maybe. It needs 39.
The IFS has been cut out. These 88 to 98s are one of the easier ones to cut out because there's less brackets. So I'm leaving the front cross member that holds the lower A-arms to kind of keep the frame from getting wonky while I'm welding the frame plates and getting everything on there. But once all that's in and it's all braced, I'm actually going to get rid of that as well. Now that I got the bulk of it out, I can get to everything else easier. So I'm going to get rid of the upper control arm mounts, the shock mount at the frame, this little bump stop slash limit strap, whatever you want to call it, bracket. And once that's all cleaned off, I'm gonna, give this a nice fresh grind so that it's not all rusty and disgusting, because this thing's on the dot 30 years that's been in there, and today it came out in an hour. So sorry, Chevy. But yeah, we're gonna keep cutting, get everything ground clean, and get some of those WFO parts on there and get this thing looking shiny. Alright, so we're back on the Tahoe today. As you can see, there is a large pile of Chevy on the ground right there. That's all the brackets that I finished wiping off the frame. Got that all ground clean. Those are our frame plates, the 88 to 98 ones. They wrap up over the frame a little bit. There is a kind of a bump in. The factory frame's got a little dimple in it. So this actually wraps over that. You weld it on the top side. They're about 75% welded. Well, I like to jump around and let the frame cool off a little bit. Also, the factory crossmember there on the ground. Got that out of there, got ours kind of mocked up. There are a few holes I will have to drill. It's all in the instructions if you end up getting one of these things. But on the 88 to 98s, we do send the crossmember without the training mount welded on, and that's because throughout the 88 to 98 span, the transmission isn't always in the same spot. So this gives you the easy use to have that welded wherever it needs to be for the transmission. But gonna keep going with that. Once these frame plates are all welded in, I'm gonna put some kind of brace up here on the front frame rails so that I can wipe this off the frame. And at that point, I think we'll be going to grab the axle, getting the radius arms all cut to length, and getting an axle up under this thing.
Andrew, what are you doing right here?
I am seating the stock pulley onto that PSC pump down there because you utilize it off the stock pump. And I'm using this little guy, little Daco laser aligner for pulleys. And that shoots the laser right off of one. You put your alignment block down on the lower one. You can see I still got a little bit to go there.
So you got to go a little bit further on. You're using the proper pulley installation tool, and you just keep on bolting it on until those two lasers line up and you're in perfect alignment.
Yep. Alright, so we're back on the Blazer, Tahoe. Get those mixed up. Alright, so we're back on the Tahoe today. Most of what I'm going to be doing today is under the hood or, in this area. Drew up a little mount down here. Got the PSC reservoir. Got the PSC pump in there. You put the factory pulley back on there. Got that all aligned. PSC box all tapped and ported for hydro assist. I'm just making lines now. Got to make a mount for the cooler down underneath the little cross member that I made there to keep the frame together. And once that's all hooked up, I can move on to, I believe, the Atlas. So we'll be getting that new transfer case in there, and then once all the shiny new parts are in for drivetrain, steering, etc. We'll be getting axles under it. So stay tuned.
What are we rolling in here, Andrew?
Well, we got an Atlas, we got an adapter, all the hardware, shifters and all that.
So one of the real important things to consider when you're solid axle swapping your GM truck, Tahoe, Blazer, Suburban, is what transfer case you're going to use. And really to determine that, you got to determine what you're going to do with the truck. So this customer is actually going to go rock crawl this thing, hardcore four-wheel it. He's going right to the Rubicon, right up to the snow as soon as we're done with this Tahoe. So what you really have to look out for to begin with in the half-ton 88 to 98 platforms and even into the earlier 2000s is they made an auto-track version of the transfer case, which means it has a viscous clutch in it and the front driveline is always engaged. When you have a lifted solid axle truck and you're in two-wheel drive driving around town, you can't have the driveline spinning all the time. You'll have some driveline vibration at 80 or 90 miles an hour. In this case, this transfer case happens to be a 243C, which is just like a big brother to the 241. So it did have a two-wheel drive option. However, the issues that go along with this factory aluminum new process case, they're not really the greatest for setting this thing up to go to the Rubicon. So if you take a look, it was a push button on the dash. So this is the electric shift motor right here. And it happens to be right next to the front output. And you can see the yoke barely misses that shift motor. Well, this is a 3R yoke on it. If you put a 1350 yoke for a 1350 CV on here, it's going to hit that. Not only that, this case is only 2.7 to 1 gear reduction. So you're not going to have that really, really slow crawl ratio and chain-driven case aluminum. So with 40-inch tires bouncing on the throttle, probably not the best option on this. The other downfall or weak point is the rear of this transfer case happens to have a Slip-Yoke on it. So with a short wheelbase like this Tahoe lifted high, we want to do a 1350 CV rear drive shaft. They do make a slip-style 1350 CV drive shaft, but it's not the greatest. So you would have to invest in a Slip-Yoke eliminator, which the 241's very easy to get a Slip-Yoke eliminator, in order to use this transfer case. We felt that not having the low gears, having the aluminum chain-driven case, having a slip rear drive shaft made it not feasible to use this. So we opted to get rid of his 243 and put an Atlas in it. So this thing, you'll never look back on transfer case issues. It's never going to break. It's got the crawl ratio. And we could go with 1350 CV drivelines, front and rear, a one and done scenario.
I did turn them down just to make it look the best. Like there's that much up preload I can put in the front to get the springs to be fully seated.
I would like it to sit at about 5.
Yeah, that's
4 3/4, so that you can hit stuff hard, but drooping out. Hopefully it won't clunk too hard, you know. I'm 100% that we should put the 1/2 inch.
That was my original thought.
Yeah, and get it. Yeah, we do the 1/2 inch back.
Yeah, because I like always having just a little bit of preload, and this thing actually now it doesn't. But.
All right, so obviously a lot of progress since the last time I got on here and talked. So front and rear axles are in. Got the front axle in a couple days ago. Just put the rear in today. Had to trim out the inner fenders for the towers, get those tacked in. We were originally planning on going with 10-inch 2.5 coilovers. We ended up going with 8s. The 10s were just a little tall for what this guy wanted, so a little bit less travel, but a way better ride height. It's going to probably drive a little better, be a little more stable. We put a shackle flip in the rear, so that got rid of the factory hangers that put the shackle up to the spring, and now they come down to the spring like most of our rigs that you see. And I have the track and everything roughly set. This is just kind of a proof of concept, make sure the ride height looks good. But yeah, got the tires on there. I believe they're 40s. Fine, so 39s. So these are 39-inch Toyo MTs. Got a few more things to do. I got to fix some brackets under the hood that the towers are running into. Obviously, shocks in the rear, get the pinion set, weld the perches on, because it was a Sterling axle in the rear, so we had to blast all the brackets off, get them all to fit what he had in this thing. So yeah, visually it probably looks done on camera, but still got a lot of work to go. So stay tuned.
We can't just have this flopping, you know. We'll make
No, we could probably make a mount, because otherwise we're gutting the airbox, and that's...
Was there a stock airbox?
Yeah, big old thing.
Oh, will that fit?
No, I had to take it out so I could get the power.
No, make that fit.
Yeah.
Make that go back in. Let's send this down the road.
Okay.
Yeah. With me, I would have gone down. I don't know why. That's how
There's just less space.
Oh, you couldn't get the nut to go in there?
It's been harder to tighten.
There's room there. All right, so being this thing is a 1996, it has a 4L60E in it, but it's the early 4L60E that has the 4-bolt pattern on the back of the transmission, kind of like a Turbo 350. So Advanced Adapters supplies this aluminum casting adapter with a different foot and transmission mount that you can put up there, and replaces the factory cast steel adapter. But the deal is it's about 1 inch shorter, and the foot and mount is not stock, so it won't fit our factory crossmember. So we decided to do something a little tricky in that we're just going to mount the Atlas right to the factory adapter. So the Atlas happens to have a Ford bolt pattern in it that then gets changed over to this adapter, so one of the holes didn't line up. So this hole right here, which is about the, what is that, maybe like the 8 o'clock hole, you can see we ovaled it up. So what we did is oval that hole so that the transfer case now bolts on to the factory adapter. We can use the factory foot. We're not going to use this from Advanced Adapters. So that way, the cross member, all the tranny mount is all the same. Now, one other thing you got to do is take a look inside this hole. So if you look in there, you see the tone ring in there. So Advanced Adapters supplies the tone ring. And you look here on the outside, we added the speed sensor, drilled a hole right into the side of the transmission tail housing. So that is the rear output speed sensor. So now we don't have to deal with a rear output speed sensor in the back of the transfer case. So when we put it in 4-low, the vehicle and transmission won't go into limp mode and throw code. So just something a little unique and different, not using advanced adapter parts. Can use the factory. That way our straight axle cross member, the factory transmission mount, everything just goes right back in. Pretty cool Atlas install. Is it even worth using that now? I guess it's still sealed right around here, right?
Yeah. That is absolute beauty right there. Fit the old Atlas shifters through the floor, typically on a TJ or something. The old guy that owns it typically rips all the carpet out of there, so a little easier than this. But as you can see, we got, I don't know, what's that, 1.5 inch of prime 90s shag carpet floor insulation right there. So we're exploring the jungle. Use stick style Atlas shifters. Sometimes they don't sit level, or I guess on all of them, they don't sit level. This is a universal kit, so they just give you a straight stick, you bend it to whatever you need. So I'm running a die down it to the same level as this one, lopping off the extra threads, and that way, it's not necessary, it's more of an aesthetic thing. But this way, both your shift knobs sit at the same level. It's just easier to look at, nicer to look at. It's one of those finer details we do around here. Alright, so today we are talking suspension. I got everything all mocked up. Customer came and checked it out, liked everything. We ended up going with an 8-inch coilover. You can see that over in that wheel well. So now I am finalizing everything. You can see that inner fender and frame and everything's all painted. So everything's getting welded up. I got our tie rod on there. Austin's being loud over there. Got the ram tabs tacked on the tie rod end, welded on the axle side. And got the track bar in there because I am setting up for bumps right now. We're going to do our rubber 05 stock style bumps in there. Or I guess I shouldn't say stock style. They are stock. We get them from Ford. And so yeah, we're going to get bumps going. We're going to get brake lines going. I got that one ran already, but I got to do this side. Obviously paint this side. And then, you know, the little things, tighten up the pitman arm, get the drag link painted, get that in there. And yeah, so we should be getting pretty close to finishing up the front, and I can go down to the rear, and we're going to do our, it's a 1/2 inch block, and you can relocate the axle 1.5 inches or 1 inch. We're going to kick it back. It's going to give us a little more room to trim the rear of the wheel well, because it's easier to trim than the front. So yeah, definitely starting to look better, which is always my favorite part, because all your work kind of looks good at the end when it's not all bare and covered in rust and crap. So yeah, we're going to keep plugging. Got a couple more things to finish up in the front, and then we'll head to the rear.
Okay, we're gonna go one rotation this way. I'm counting the pinions, so slowly turn this way. Yep. So 1, 2, 3. You there? Oh, and they're right there. So where do you see that blue? 350 would be right here. So is it right down in there?
Yep.
373. You know why?
Well, yeah, because it was 3.73 rotations here for one there.
Absolutely. But you can't just spin one side. You got to spin each
Yeah, or
of
you're
them
getting
the same.
past it because the
I could have told you I ripped the tag off it yesterday.
You dick. What a dick.
Wanted to get you painting.
Oh yeah. There's gonna be a lot of this going on. Well, getting the, as you can see, the rear brakes set up. Got new calipers here, new pads, all the good stuff there. So we're going to get the brakes going, we're going to get the rear shocks mounted, and hopefully drive this thing out of the shop under its own power.
Yep. Good work.
All right, so as you can probably tell, Tahoe's done. So starting from the rear, we're gonna work to the front. I got the Sterling for anybody out there that's a Chevy purist. Look away now, because there's a forward, rear, and front axle in this thing. So we got the Sterling in the rear. Use the stock springs. We put the WFO shackle flip in there because that gives it just that little bit more height, so it's not squatting in the rear. Gives you a good shackle angle for off-road purposes. The stock upright shackle is not really the best for that. We just threw a set of basic Bilsteins that we stock in there. He might end up going to Kings in the future, but this is going to get him on the road and driving. We did end up, as you can see, the axle's a little far back of the factory center, and that is because we used our Relocation block where you can either move the axle a 1/2 inch or 1.5 inches. So we kicked it back that 1/2 inch. Did a little bit of trimming. That was real fun because everything's double wall on these Tahoes right up to the edge of the fender. So I had to cut the outside, make it look nice, and then delicately hammer the inside wall in to get the tire to clear it. Pretty much it for the rear. Basic, used the same springs that came in it, so that made it real easy. Coming to the middle here, we did put a 4:3 ratio Atlas in there, and it's nothing super fancy. Get that shut off because it's gonna ding. Ran the shifters through the floor there, just the typical stick shifters for an Atlas, as you'd get on any like TJ kit. No cables or anything fancy. And that'll help a lot when he's off-road, just to give that a little bit better ratio than the stock case gives you. And then the meat and potatoes of this whole build is the WFO 88 to 98 solid axle swap kit. So if you're familiar with them, it's the 05 and up front axle that matches that Sterling in the rear. It's a Super Duty axle out of a Ford. And so this is actually the builder's kit version of this. So we sold him all of the like basic cut to fit parts, I guess you could say. So the radius arms on a lot of our like Duramax kits, you buy them, they have the insert already welded in. They're a preset length. These are cut long when we weld them together, so you cut them down to whatever length you need, weld the tube insert in yourself, and kind of set everything for what your vehicle needs. So you probably saw earlier in the video, I got it up in the air, got our crossmember in there once all the factory stuff was cut out, set the axle where we thought it needed to be, where it fit best with the coilover towers, because those do index off of the frame plates where they need to be on the frame. Got the axle set in there, set the radius arms up, bolted them to the axle on the factory mount, kind of measure where everything needed to be, cut them, weld it in. Pretty straightforward. It kind of just goes together, so it makes these kits really nice. Ended up going with an 8-inch travel 2.5 King coilover, and 8 inches might not sound like a lot, but this thing actually flexes pretty well. If any of you guys have seen my personal vehicle on our YouTube, Instagram, whatever, it flexes about the same as that, and that's just like a little Toyota 4Runner. So if that thing can make it through the trail, this thing will. He's got Sidetracked 17-inch beadlocks on there, wrapped in Toyo open countries. They're 39s, I believe. So if he does go to 40s in the future, the old grinder's going to have to come out again, and this thing's going to get loved. And so these axles that are in here right now, he wanted to just get this thing rolling and driving. So they still have the factory ratio from whatever they had in them from the junkyard. So we are going to have him come back later for the right gearing. It already has the factory Ford E-locker in the back, so we're going to hook that up to a switch on the dash. Probably going to run an ARB in the front. Obviously, there's a big, long rocker panel here that's just waiting for a rock to dig it in. So we're probably going to do some rock sliders on there, give them a little more protection, easier to get in and out. It is, you know, a little taller than it was before. There are going to be a few more finished details that you might see in the future, but that's just all dependent on how he sees fit. So that's pretty much all we did to it. Just front and rear suspension, threw some 39s on there, Atlas. And it drives like a dream. If the suspension wasn't horrible when it came in, I would imagine it drives about the same as a stock one. Stay tuned for any more work we might do on this thing, and rock on.